I've been covering the Julian Assange case, and covering that case, there's been a worrying development that's apparently has taken place on October 29th. There's a confirmed break-in attempt at the embassy itself and at Assange's residence within the embassy. Let me say it that way. At Assange's residence in the Ecuadorian embassy in the UK. Susie Dawson confirmed this. There's a visual that's taking place right now that I'll be going to immediately after dropping this stream, that you guys can join me if you like. But I am going to give you the story because I read this and I said, let me do the story. So let's flip over. It's relatively short, so this one to be quick. Break-in attempt at an embassy, fears raised of abduction. An attempted break-in at Julian Assange's residence inside the Ecuadorian embassy in London on October the 29th and absence of a security detail have raised fears on the safety of the WikiLeaks publisher. Lawyers for Assange have confirmed to activists and journalist Susie Dawson that Assange was awoken in the early morning hours by the break-in attempt. They confirmed to Dawson that the attempt was to enter the front window of the embassy. A booby trap Assange had set up awoke him, the lawyers said. Scaffolding has appeared on the embassy building. Let's open this so you can see it. Scaffolding has appeared against the embassy building in the Knightsbridge section of London, which obscures the embassy's security cameras, the lawyers said. On the scaffolding, electronic devices, presumably to conduct surveillance, can be seen just a feet away from the embassy window. And that will be this. It's uncertain of what that is, but we're assuming surveillance. On the scaffolding, electronic devices presumably conduct surveillance can be seen just feet away from the embassy windows. Later on the day of the break-in, Sean O'Brien, a lecturer at the Yale University Law School and cybersecurity expert, was able to enter the embassy through the front door, which was left open. Inside, he found no security present. Someone from the embassy emerged to tell him to send an email to set up an appointment with Assange. After emailing the embassy, the personnel inside refused to check whether or not it had been received. O'Brien then noticed more scaffolding being erected and observed the devices, which he photographed. Though as a cybersecurity expert, O'Brien said he could not identify what the devices were. Well, cybersecurity is not necessarily indicative of well, you know what I mean. I've never seen devices like this, and I take photos of surveillance equipment often, O'Brien said. They were curious plastic tubes with orange-yellow caps zip-tied to the front. I have no idea what these are, but they seem to be equipment inside of them. The devices were pointed towards the embassy where all of the blinds were open and not the street, he said. The surveillance devices in the photos reveal no manufacturing, branding, serial numbers, or visible device information, Dawson said. The combination of the obscuring of the street-facing surveillance cameras and the installations of surveillance equipment photos pointed into instead of away from the embassy is alarming. The Ecuadorian government had to have given permission for the devices to be installed as they're flushed against the walls. That is on government sovereign territory, Dawson said. O'Brien said the previous visitors had described to him closed and locked doors, security guards manning the desk at all times, privacy drapes, dark rooms with shuttered blinds. For such a reversal of position to have occurred, there is only one conclusion: the Ecuadorian embassy is open for business, wide open. What they mean by that is, the concern is that there will be a team to try to abduct Assange. If that team does do that, any sort of, let's say, limp protests by the Ecuadorian government, which indeed there would be limp protests, seeing as Moreno wants to get rid of Assange and considers him a thorn in his shoe. In May, the Ecuadorian government under Lenin Moreno shut off Assange's electronic communications and denied him all visitations except his mom and his lawyers. Last month, the government offered Assange a deal. His access to the world could be restored if he agreed not to comment on politics. Assange reportedly refused. Solidarity. On Thursday, the government suddenly barred all access to Assange's visitors, including his legal team, until next Monday, raising fears that no witnesses could be present should there be an attempt to abduct Assange over the weekend. This break-in attempt occurred on the morning that Assange was due to testify via video link to a court in Quito regarding Assange's conditions of asylum. Technical problems interrupted Assange's testimony. The court ruled against his lawyer's petition for protections for Assange. The new Ecuadorian government indicated in the spring that Assange would eventually have to leave the embassy. Assange fears that if he leaves, the British government would arrest him on a minor charge of skipping bail when he legally sought asylum inside the embassy on June of 2012. His fears are most likely correct. Assange and his lawyers fears that if he is detained by British authorities, he will be extradited to the United States, where they believe there is a sealed indictment against him, possibly on espionage charges, for simply publishing classified documents that he has not been accused of stealing. Simply is far too underwhelming. Let's be honest. Simply. Saying simply publishing, I mean, it went beyond just simply publishing. Assange is giving information to the world that world, for the most part, didn't have privy to prior. It's a revolutionary thing, right? In the world of lies, telling the truth is somewhat of a revolutionary thing. Call it what it is. You have psychopaths in the various governments around the world, particularly in the United States, that this adversely affects. Joe Lauria is editor-in-chief of Consortium News and former correspondent for the Wall Street Journal, Boston Globe, Sunday Times of London, and numerous other newspapers. He can be reached at joelauria@consortiumnews.com and followed on Twitter at unjoe. This article's to the point. Just be aware. I am going to end this because I don't want this one to stay too long, and I am going to the vigil now. So I will see you guys in a few. I have one or two articles that I want to do, or one or two pieces that I want to do this evening. And that's probably going to be it for Saturday. Thanks all.